It's Thirsty Thursday, my dudes. And your thirst for DFS and sportsbook knowledge will be quenched here on The Sweat, presented by DraftKings in the next 55 minutes. I am your host, Emerson Lancy. I'm riding solo currently on your camera because Jessie Cofield continues to live her best life, just traveling the planet and enjoying everything that this planet has to offer. But I'm not alone on this desk because Julian Edlow is sitting within inches from me. But coming up on this show, we have you here for some football stuff.
Was that a real open?
Yeah, it's a real open.
Interesting.
We have a lot coming up on this show, and I need to tell you about it. So the MLB postseason, it starts tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So we're going to cover that. Phillies pitcher Kyle Gibson will also join us ahead of his team's wild card opener tomorrow against St.
It's
Louis.
unfortunate his team's going to lose.
You know what? St. Louis is a pretty heavy favorite. I'm not going to lie. I think the Albert Pujols magic continues. Why it's shaping up to be one of the most exciting Premier League seasons ever. Okay,
Soccer.
Chinmay and AJ, well, it's football. It's not soccer.
Football.
But first things first, yeah. So week 5, it gets underway tonight around the NFL. Let's tackle the betting side of this one. We'll do the DFS side a little later because there is a Millie Maker on DraftKings that you guys and gals need to get into. We have you here. We have Pierce Dietrich here. It's going to be a very positive segment. All right, no Jonathan Taylor, no Javonte Williams. This is not positive for either one of these teams. So Taylor has been ruled out with an ankle injury tonight. Javonte Williams has been ruled out as well for the rest of the season with an ACL injury. On the DK Sportsbook here, Jules, is the rushing prop department, after the information that I just dropped on you, is the rushing prop department a stay-away spot for you?
Yes and no. I think we can play a running back prop, but I'm not going to do it in the rushing department. I don't know how to trust this Colts run game without Jonathan Taylor in it. And then you see Melvin Gordon there. Like, his rushing prop went up. It opened 59.5, went up into the 60s. Now it's down at 57.5. I kind of agree with the drop. In theory, he should get more volume, but he has 5 fumbles this season. If he loses it again, you don't know if he's going to get benched like he was last week. And Indy's been really stout against the run. So for me, I'm looking at Nyheim Hines in Indy's backfield. He clearly has to get more snaps, but I don't know what he's going to do on the ground. So I'm looking over 3.5 receptions for Hines.
That's a good one.
He did it in the first 3 games of the season, then fell off, I think, with a couple catches last week. Josh Jacobs had 5 catches for the Raiders against the Broncos on Sunday. He was averaging 5 catches a year the first 3 games of the year. He hit at least 4 in all of them, heavily targeted. So Hines over 3.5 catches is how I'm playing a running back prop in this game, even though it's in the receiving game.
Okay, Pierce, yesterday you were pretty adamant on just fading everybody and everything in this game. But how does that under 57.5 rushing yards look for you for Melvin Gordon?
I'm going to stay away from Denver's running back situation and follow Julian and go over to the Colts. And I do like the 3.5 receptions for Nyheim Hines, who has typically been a receiving running back, and Matt Ryan just does not force the ball downfield. Second lowest intended air yards per pass attempt at 6.3. He's also facing one of the best secondaries in football, Surtain, Ronald Darby. They're pretty much going to lock down the cornerbacks or the receivers on the outside. They even got a good slot cornerback. They've got a good free safety, and Matt Ryan already wants to check down. Plus, Denver blitzes a lot, which means there is going to be open running backs in the flats from time to time. Nyheim Hines will probably be there as long as he's not in pass protection. 3.5 seems like a pretty low total. I'm also not too, crazy about going with the 36.5 over rushing total for Nyheim Hines. You look at what Denver's defense has done against the run. They just gave up 144 rushing yards to Josh Jacobs, over 6 yards per carry the week before that. 4.6 yards per carry the week before that. They're giving up a lot of chunks of yardage on the ground to running backs. So I know Nyheim Hines is not the greatest runner, but this defense from the Broncos, not that strong against the run.
No, and speaking of Matty, cold as ice and caution, surface may be hot. Russ Pierce, which quarterback prop catches your eye here? Matty Ice has thrown an interception in 3 of 4 games this year, including 3 against America's team, or in your words, the Trailer Park Boys, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Ryan wasn't terrible in his last game. I still just don't trust him, and I definitely don't trust him against this defense. I really don't trust Dust Wilson. I've been pretty much opposed to him all season, but when these are the only 2 quarterbacks to pick and the over-under on passing yards is pretty low, I believe Wilson will go over this. He hasn't looked terrible, and Denver just doesn't have any options. They've got to pass the ball. I know Nathaniel Hackett has not been the favorite head coach of anyone in the league right now. He loves to run the ball, going back to Buffalo, his years at Jacksonville, even before and after that at Green Bay. But now his hands are tied. You really cannot give the ball to Melvin Gordon more than you need to. Otherwise, he's going to be giving the ball to the other team. So you've got the passing offense. You can move the ball. The Colts are getting no pressure on the quarterback, no knockdowns, no sacks. They're giving up a decent amount of yards. The opportunity is going to be there for Russell Wilson to scramble, take the check downs. It's a decent matchup for him. So I'll take the over on Russell Wilson's passing yards total.
Okay, anything you like in the quarterback props department here? Because, again, the Colts are likely going to have to lean more on that passing game with Jonathan Taylor out.
Yeah, both teams might have to. I'm going to the Denver side like Pierce, and I'm going with the Russell Wilson prop. I'm going to go over 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's at plus money. Wrote it up in my best bets article for Thursday Night Football, like the Hines prop, and the juice is moving on both of them, but you can still get the plus money here. Wilson only had 2 passing touchdowns in the first 3 games of the season combined. Not good, but he did get to 2 last week on the road against Vegas, and if you look at the Indy defense, I mentioned how good it is against the rush. They've been allowing passing touchdowns. Weeks 1, 2, and 4, they allowed 2 passing touchdowns and no interceptions, and that was to Davis Mills, to Trevor Lawrence, and to Ryan Tannehill. The only quarterback that didn't go over this number was Mahomes, who threw just 1 with 1 interception. So I think in this spot, Denver will try and run. I think they'll realize early it's not going to work well with Melvin Gordon. Maybe he even puts one on the ground, and then they're going to have to rely on the passing game, and I think Wilson does find his way to 2 passing touchdowns in this game.
Well, dude, someone has to score tonight, so hook us up with a touchdown score prop that you like here, Jules.
Yeah, when it comes to the touchdown score, I'll probably, if I think Russell Wilson's going to throw 2 touchdowns, I have to go to one of his guys here. It'd be between Judy and Courtland Sutton.
Okay.
So I'll go with Courtland Sutton as an anytime scorer, but my favorite prop on Courtland Sutton is the over 23.5 yards on his long reception. He has gone over to 30 or more yards for a reception 3 times this year. And the Colts have allowed a long reception of 23 or more yards in every game. They allowed 4 over this number against the Chiefs. I think Courtland Sutton long reception is the best way to back him, but you can also bet him to get into the end zone.
And both Sutton and Judy in the top 3 here for first touchdown scorer props. So Sutton plus 750 to be the first touchdown scorer tonight. Judy plus 950. What do you like here, Pierce?
Latavius Murray.
Whoa!
Plus 245.
Oh!
He's got to be active. We got to see if Latavius Murray is
definitely needs to be active.
He's got to be active. We don't know if he's going to play yet. I mean, he's just coming over from Europe a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But the coaching staff has not ruled it out yet. Hackett was pretty excited to have him in. He actually played well last week in England. So we'll see what Latavius Murray has. But here's the strategy. If you have Melvin Gordon, and he's fumbled already 5 times this season, meanwhile, you also have Latavius Murray now, who has fumbled like once in 5 years. I think that's the stat. Who are you going to give the ball to in the red zone?
Yep.
Who are you going to give the ball to in goal line situations? There's no way Melvin Gordon is going to line up in goal line situations. Now, maybe it'll be Boone, but if Latavius Murray is active, plus 245 to score the touchdown. Also, a Russell Wilson rushing touchdown. Don't rule that out either.
Yeah, man. So you have him as your anytime touchdown score? Is that what you're saying? So plus 400 there are now the odds on the DK Sportsbook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe he won't play.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, who knows? But you're right. It was kind of crazy. He was called up last week, Pierce, from the Saints practice squad and rushed for 11 times, 57 yards and a touchdown, caught his own target for 8 yards.
The spot for him is just ridiculous because we're used to teams getting a bye off the London week.
Yes, we are.
Now he played Sunday in London. Now he's going to play in Denver on Thursday. Like, this has never been done, so we'll see.
Okay, so how then are you betting this game tonight, Pierce? Because the Broncos, 3.5-point favorites on the DK Sportsbook. Total is a low 42 here, which is one of the lowest on this Week 5 slate.
I'll take Denver and lay the points. They're the better team. They're playing at home. It's a short week. There really isn't any reason why Denver shouldn't win this game. Denver could easily be a 4-0 team, and Indianapolis could easily be an 0-4 team. You just match these 2 teams up against each other, and it's clear that Denver just has been a little sloppy. Indianapolis is pretty far away from being good, and they're without pretty much their best offensive weapon. They're struggling a lot. I just can't see a Colts team on a short week winning a night game in Mile High. I don't think they're even going to be close to covering. As long as Russell Wilson doesn't implode and Melvin Gordon doesn't fumble the ball 2 or 3 times, Denver should absolutely be fine in this game.
I mean, Russ is coming off his best game of the season, at least through 4 games here, Jules. But both teams also 1-3 ATS, putting them in the bottom third of the NFL.
Yeah, Russ got going against a bad Vegas defense. Yep. Now he gets an Indy defense that at least isn't good against the pass, so it's another good spot for him. I don't know. I can't trust either of these teams. I cannot trust either of them. The head coach in Denver, the way that Matt Ryan and this offense have looked. If you're telling me it's 3, I'll lay it with Denver. If you're telling me it's 3.5, I'll take it with the hook over a field goal with Indy. That's how tight the margin is, I think, on this game. Can't bet it for me. It's all props.
Can you bet this total, though? Because so I'm looking at the numbers here. Colts have hit the under in each of their games this year, and 9 straight games ending back to last season. And you have the Broncos who've gone under in 3 of their first 4 games. So this kind of feels like a trap, almost like this one's going to have to go over now.
Yeah, the 2 best ball carriers in the game are out. It's the short week. Neither team has played very well offensively at all this season. So, yeah, the total is, again, a tough play, a stay away for me. Okay. Maybe if you want to do a same-game teaser and get Indy up to 9.5 and pick which way you want to go with the total, but I won't be playing the 42 total.
Before you two take off, what?
Having a slurp of something there?
Yeah, I'm having a seltzer. I'm thirsty, dude.
Okay.
All right, so before you two take off, I do want to fast forward real quick to Sunday morning, just in case you're watching right now, you're living out on the West Coast, you got a late Saturday night planned. You want to make sure you don't forget to put in your bets on the DK Sportsbook for Giants and Packers in London. Green Bay, an 8-point favorite. Aaron Rodgers is like, man, I wish we had more time to kind of hang out and look at the sights and sounds of London and hang out with fans. He's talking about wanting to go out.
It's a business trip, bro.
He's talking about wanting to go out and get a Guinness, like with the boys. He wants to be a tourist across the pond. What is a bet you're targeting in this one right now, Thursday morning, Jules?
Well, if the boys are going out for Guinness on Saturday night, then first half under, right?
Yeah!
I leaned towards the first half under last week with the London game. It stayed under, and the full game went over. I do think that these London games have slow starts. So for me, I don't know if I'm going to bet the game, but a first half under would make sense. And I do think the Giants are pretty dinged up, due for a little regression. So I'm not willing to lay 8. But if you're going to do a week 5 6-point teaser, I think getting the Packers down under the key number of a field goal, getting them -2 makes sense.
All right. What do you think here, Pierce?
Well, I think Julian's going to lose his Viva sponsor if he keeps talking about Guinness. You better watch out there.
I'm a brand ambassador, and thank you for pointing that out, Pierce.
Well done, Pierce. Well done. He's promised me beverages for weeks now and has refused to do it.
I'm waiting to.
Yeah,
I'll give you my address. You can mail them over.
Give them to the important people first, but...
Yeah, okay, all right. Same game parlay, plus 800. Dylan over 64.5 rushing yards.
Woo.
Dylan 59.5. Aaron Jones over 64.5. And then you take their receiving yards as well, 19.5 for Aaron Jones and 10 for A.J. Dillon, plus 800. Giants, last year, worst team against the run. This year, 21st against the run. This year, they're 30th against receiving running backs. We know that Green Bay loves to hammer the running backs on the ground and through the air. So parlay all 4 of the rushing and receiving totals.
Damn, besides 49ers and Panthers, which currently has a Sunday total of 39 right now, this is the next lowest total on the board at 40.5.
Yeah, I mean, look at the way the offenses have looked.
Yep.
Look at the way the defenses have looked and the early London kickoff. So it makes sense. We shouldn't see much.
Okay.
This was the same, the Patriots, this was the same. The Patriots total last week was sitting around 40. Packers, low scoring.
Exactly.
First half under hit in that as well.
Wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yep, I know
All
everything.
Right. Yep. You two are free to go. Thanks, Pierce, because we got playoff baseball starting tomorrow. Everyone's very excited about it here on the desk, including Jules. So a couple days to go.
I am.
A couple days ago, I talked with Phillies pitcher Kyle Gibson to see what returning to the playoffs means to him, what it means to this veteran, and what the celebration was like in the clubhouse after the Phillies ended their 11-year drought. All right, folks, we're kicking the show up a notch right now because we are joined by Phillies starting pitcher Kyle Gibson, a 10-year vet, nearing the end of his first full year with Philadelphia here. How are we feeling this morning after clinching the first playoff berth in, the last 11 years for the Phillies, dude? The party was on, man.
Oh, man, what a night. It was really hard to not sit there and scoreboard watch there in the 7th, 8th inning just to see if they were going to post the Milwaukee score ahead of time. But There's nothing like winning and actually being able to run out there and do the team line and celebrate. And it's a really cool feeling each time you make the playoffs. Been fortunate with Minnesota. We won a division at 19, and that was the first time we won a division in quite a few years. And then here, first time in the playoffs since 2011, I think. So an 11-year drought, and just a cool moment to watch guys soak it in. We've got ranges from Kyle Schwarber, who said he's been 7 out of the 8 years he's been in the big leagues, which is ridiculous. And then obviously we got guys who are in their first full season in the show, and they made it, probably thinking this is how it is every single year, and it's just not. And, it's tough to make the playoffs. It's obviously a little bit easier now with 6 teams in each league, but it's the hardest playoffs to make in all of professional sports.
Yeah, describe to me the party inside that clubhouse last night.
Yeah, I won't say that it was, tapered down, because normally each party each year each series gets a little bigger, right? With the one at the World Series being the biggest. But I think it was a lot of just, pent up energy a little bit, because, we had started off to such a bad start, and we had such high expectations, and we fought and clawed our way back to being able to control our destiny here the last couple of weeks. And to finally get it done, it was a good release of emotion from a lot of people that have put in a lot of hard work, and man, just a lot of smiles and a lot of excitement. Really happy for the guys in this locker room.
Yeah, when Rob Thompson dropped we got 13 more wins after Wednesday and we're world champions, like the boys were buzzing after that, dude. Like the place erupted.
Yeah, it's the beauty about the playoffs, right, is it's really you focusing on yourselves. There's no more scoreboard watching. No more wondering what anybody else is doing. Here in the wild card, you win 2 games and you move on. Yep. You go to the NLDS, you win 3 games and you move on. And, it's one game at a time. I know it's cliche, but sometimes those cliches work.
Yeah, I mean, those poor Brewers, they walked it off, and then they're also eliminated at the exact same time.
Man, it's entering the playoffs or getting knocked out of the playoffs is a brutal world. Last year the Marlins were the team that kept us out of the playoffs here in Philadelphia. Crazy enough, and turns out it's the Marlins that went and helped us up in Milwaukee a little bit. So pretty fun year though, and feel for those guys with the Brewers though. They have a good team, and they're going to be good again next year, I'm sure.
Kyle, what would it mean to you to get another shot at pitching here in the postseason?
Yeah, 17 was an interesting time because we just had the one game wild card. Was set to pitch in that first ALDS if we'd have made it, and we didn't, unfortunately. And then just got the 1 inning there in 19, and it would mean a lot. It would mean a lot just to have another chance to get out there in October and compete on the biggest stage possible in our sport.
And I know you've been in Philly now long enough. I mean, you probably don't have to be there that long to realize how much this baseball team means to this city. And that moment last night, how do you think fans feel this morning or felt the morning after?
Yeah, I think everybody, even players, if we're being honest, there's probably a little bit of relief, right?
Yeah.
Anytime that you're not, clinching the division early and you have a large lead in the division and you're making it, you're always confident. But when it actually happens, there's a little bit, okay, we can let our shoulders drop. We can have fun here the next couple of days and really get set and prepared for the wild card. And I'm sure Phillies fans are probably thinking the same too. It's like, hey, they've been probably holding their breath a little bit here the last couple months as we made a run and put ourselves in a good spot. And they really just want us to win. They want a chance to watch playoff baseball. And I'm sure they're pretty excited this morning.
How would you describe the difference between Philly fans and then the fan bases in Texas and Minnesota where you've also pitched?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the culture of the people. If you look and know the differences between the people in the Northeast, the greater north in Minnesota and the south in Texas, that's probably the best way to describe the differences in the fans as well. Minnesota has their Minnesota nice, and everybody there is just incredibly upstanding and polite for the most part. And not that Philly isn't polite, obviously, but you have, the Northeast attitude a little bit. Yep. You have that Northeast, chip on their shoulder on things. And that's how they are as fans.
Yep.
And you go to Texas and you're in the South and everything's big and grand. And that's how they expect it to be down there too.
So, yeah, the stage is set for the MLB playoffs. Game 1, the wild card series is going to be tomorrow. Take a look at your probable starters here. First time there are a dozen teams battling for World Series glory. It's time to cover the bases right now with DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne, Nick Fryer, RotoWire's Eric Halterman. Good morning, gentlemen. Let's go first base, and let's start in DFS here. So lots of different options for contests. You got Showdown, you got Classic. Who is a pitcher you expect to be absolutely lights out in Game 1 of the wild card series, and you are considering a must roster, Nick?
Yeah, so I think you look at some of the value options, and they are very appealing, and I'm imagining that one of these two guys are going to be talking about them. But for me, I'm looking at a high-price guy in Shane Bieber at 9.3K going up against the Rays. And look, I know that he didn't do so hot against the Rays last time. I'm actually kind of banking on some people kind of fading him because of that. But you look at what the Rays have done against right-handed pitching since September 1st, a 118 ISO. K rate not immensely high, but high enough for me going against Shane Bieber, 22.9%. And those numbers get a little bit worse when they go on the road as well. Just a slight uptick in both categories in Bieber's favor. So yeah, look, I know that he had 4 runs last time he saw them, but he also diced against them earlier in the season too. So I like the Rays in this series, but I really like Shane Bieber in the opener.
Okay, what about you, Gare Bear?
I'm just a little too enticed by a couple of those guys who clock in at sub 7K. I mean, look, someone has to be cheap. That's just how this works. And we've just got stud after stud after stud going to the mound on Friday. But I think Mclennan is probably the one I'm most intrigued by, just because the Guardians have been pitiful this season against left-handed pitching. They don't strike out a lot, but you do think Mclennan is the kind of guy who can sort of overcome particular team strikeout rates. Like, that's how good his stuff is, or that's how good it was prior to him going on the IL. I also think Alek Manoah's in a really nice spot. He's just $6,900. This is someone who, since the beginning of September, has thrown 41 innings and has a .88 ERA within that span of time. The knock on Manoah, sort of in that Wheeler, Manoah, Mclennan tier, would be that he doesn't have the raw strikeout rate that those two other pitchers have. However, moving into a playoff setting, Seattle actually has the highest strikeout rate from September 1st on of any team left in the wild card round, which makes sense. A lot of the good teams don't strike out all that much. So I do think Seattle sort of brings that upside to Manoah. And the other thing I would think about in that particular matchup, Alek Manoah is dominant against right-handed batters. He has held them to a 159 batting average and a 203 WOBA this season. The 4 best bats on the Seattle Mariners are all right-handed. Julio Rodriguez, Ty France, Mitch Haniger. It's just a team that doesn't necessarily set up all that well against Manoah. So I do think Mclennan is my number 1 option, but if you are a little scared off about the pitch count, I think Manoah is a really solid number 2.
Okay, which pitcher are you going to consider a must roster tomorrow, Eric?
Yeah, I think Shane Mclennan's my number 2 for many of the same reasons Gary stated, but I'm a little bit nervous of the fact that he had just 7 strikeouts against 7 walks over his final 3 starts. And we know the Rays are famous tinkerers, so it's possible that he only gets 4 1/3, regardless of how he's pitching. I still like him, though. Like you said, he's my second choice. But my number 1 is going to be Zach Wheeler. Part of the reason there is the Phillies can't necessarily be tinkerers. If they win this series, it's because Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola get the job done. The bullpen is better than it was the last few years, but it's far from a strength, especially compared to other playoff teams. So I think they're going to need Wheeler to go at least 7 here. And he'll throw those, hopefully, 7 innings in the most pitcher-friendly park among the 4 parks being used this round. He did have an injury late in the season, a forearm issue, but he came back, struck out 15, walked 1, allowed just 1 earned run in 15 innings since his return. So I'm not too worried about his performance level there. Yes, it's a tough lineup with the bounce-back seasons of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado having basically career years at this late stage of their careers. Both of them are righties, though, so that mitigates that at least somewhat. Not an easy matchup for Wheeler, but given the park, given the very respectable price, $7,200, and his performance since that injury, I think I'm happy to go with him.
Well, speaking of Goldschmidt, Eric, he is one of the top 3 priced hitters for tomorrow. So which one do you want to ride with in DFS?
A guy I like a little bit further down than that is Wander Franco at 4,600. His season-long 116 WRC plus is below expectations, but A lot of that's because he was kind of shaky early in the season. Since returning from a broken hammock bone, he's been killing it. 149 WRC plus, hitting 322 with more walks than strikeouts, as he tends to do. Yes, he's facing Shane Bieber, but every single hitter on this slate is facing a very tough pitcher. I don't think Bieber stands out to me too much within this group of excellent arms. Progressive Field, too, is the most hitter-friendly park of the 4 on offer this slate. Bieber also doesn't strike out a ton of guys, especially down the stretch. Strikeout rate under 20% across his last 4 starts. So I think a guy who makes as much contact as Franco does will probably get at least a couple hits in this one.
Nick, which hitter are you riding down with tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bryce Harper at 5.6K, of course, going up against the Cardinals. Look, I know that Miles McCullough generates a lot of ground balls from left-handed hitters, and Bryce Harper hits quite a few ground balls against right-handed pitching. However, McCullough does not generate a lot of strikeouts. Harper does not strike out a lot against right-handed pitching either. So I think we're going to see a lot of batted ball events in those matchups. And when you look at, and he gives up a decent amount of fly balls to McCullough, does left-handed pitching. But then when you look at their BVP numbers too, again, just as an accent number, but Harper is 4 for 10 against him with a double and a home run throughout his career.
All right, Gare Bear.
Yeah, I'm looking in a similar spot as Nick. I mean, I guess we don't technically know who's starting for the Cardinals yet. It's either going to be Michaelis or it's going to be Jose Quintana, which, gives you a complete opposite look and feel in that lineup. So let's just say if Michaelis starts, I like Kyle Schwarber for a lot of the same reasons that Nick sort of just pointed out. The low strikeout rate being chief among them. I think when you have a guy like Schwarber who's, his WOBA on contact, his expected WOBA on contact and batted ball events is so high. If you're giving him a scenario where he's more likely to make contact than not, this is someone who's got a 334 isolated power against right-handed pitching so far this season. He was red hot down the stretch, a 160 WRC plus from September 1st on. If they go with Quintana, then you just use Rhys Hoskins, who's been fantastic against left-handed pitching all season. Maybe use JT Realmuto, who's been amazing the last 6 weeks of 2022. So regardless of which handedness option you end up getting from the Cardinals, I think there's an answer with that Phillies lineup.
All right, let's go third base here, dudes. Again, 3-game wildcard format. It's back from the shortened 2020 campaign, and we have all sorts of series props on the DK Sportsbook. So let's start with series total games. Which one, Garion, is going 3, and you're taking the over 2.5 games?
I think it's going to be Tampa-Cleveland. Look, I almost feel like it's cheating, and we got the answers to the test last week because these two teams played a series in Cleveland. The first game went to extra innings, the second game went to extra innings, and the third game ended 2-1 in a game where Cleveland took the lead in the bottom of the 8th inning. Like, these were hyper tightly contested ball games between two teams that are built very similarly. I mean, these are two teams that are built from the pitching staff up. These are two offenses that can go ice cold at any given time. I just think we're looking at a pair of teams that really do a good job at suppressing opposing runs. And once you're talking about playing games that are like 1-0, 2-1, 3-2, like they can really just go either direction. So I think it's going to be a very close series, and I think it's going to go all 3.
Yeah, and you could get Rays to win the series 2-1 right now at plus 285, or Guardians to win series 2-1 plus 255. So something else to keep in mind when you're on the DK Sportsbook. Nick, what do you think? Which one's going 3?
Yeah, I'm with Garion on this one, too. I mean, I like Bieber a lot, obviously, in this matchup. And Mclennan did get roughed up when the Guardians saw him earlier in the season. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean anything. And like you guys highlighted, that he could end up only going like 2 innings because of pitch count, because the Rays like to do Rays things and get us all annoyed. But I honestly look at all these series, and we're talking about, is it going to go the distance? I think you can look at any one of these and say, yes, it is likely that it'll happen to all of them. Whether it's the Tampa Bay Cleveland series, Seattle Toronto would probably be my number 2 on that list, and then probably Philly St. Louis. The one I would say, if you're like on the fence about, it's probably Mets Padres, just because I do expect the Mets, as much as they kind of had a collapse and everything, I don't trust the Padres, and I love the 1-2. What's not to love about the 1-2 punch that the Mets are going to be trotting out in this series? So Tampa Bay Cleveland is my one if you're just going to do one, but I think 3 of the other of the 4, are legitimate options to go over.
Yeah, Eric, I mean, I know the Guardians have a better record than the Rays, but they invite a little bit of skepticism there thanks to the fact that half their games are played against a subpar AL Central.
Yeah, and that's what makes this, I think, the second most likely to go the distance to me. I think you can rule out both NL series. I think the reason you like the Mets, like Nick said, is because they're 1-2 punch. And I think I like the Phillies 1-2 punch in the other series. If the Phillies win it all, I think they're doing so in 2 games. In the AL, it's possible the Guardians just don't have enough talent to take one of the first 2 against the Rays. Though granted, I think the Rays are one of the weaker teams left in the playoffs as well. So I think that's a perfectly fine bet. But I'm actually going to put Seattle-Toronto slightly ahead. And here, my main worry would be that the Blue Jays offense, which is second best in the league by Team WRC+, just rolls. But I think the Mariners have a pretty good rotation. Not elite for a playoff team, but a very solid rotation and a very deep bullpen. I think they can keep that Jays offense from going wild for 2 straight games. And the Jays have questions with their starting pitching. Alek Manoah has a huge gap between his ERA and the ERA estimators. 2.24 ERA, but a 3.85 SIERA. SIERA is usually more predictive of future ERA than ERA itself. A little worry about him. Kevin Gausman, 3.90 ERA in the second half and exited his final start with a cut on his finger. It's probably not an issue, but maybe that is. I could easily see the Blue Jays dropping one of those 2, and I think that's what makes this the most likely to go to distance.
All right, we're heading home, dudes. Favorite series winner bet. So it looks like Mets are the biggest favorite over the Padres at minus 175, although Bear, your Blue Jays are not too far behind, minus 170 to knock off the Mariners. So which team and number do you like best here, Nick?
Yeah, so I know what we say about the Phillies and how they're kind of like knockoff Mets right now with the 2 pitchers that are going out there. Sorry, Eric. But I still like the Cardinals more in that series. And I like the Rays for a similar reason, too. These are 2 franchises that I know it's different personnel from year to year with some of these teams, but they know how to get there and they know how to win close ball games. They know how to scrap it out. I know that Zach Wheeler has absolutely shoved against the Cardinals in the 2 times he's seen him this year, but to skunk a team 3 times like he has is going to be difficult, and they got to Aaron Nola last time they saw him too. So Cardinals get my number 1, but Rays are my number 2.
Yeah, but Bear, when I look at being able to get plus money here with the Phillies, you got to take in the play, right, that they beat St. Louis 4 out of 7 games this year, not to mention 3 of those 4 wins. The Phillies shut out the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, look, I said yesterday that I think if you play this series at a neutral field, the Phillies are favored in game 1 and game 2.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I know they're not playing this at a neutral site, but I think that has to really be taken under consideration. I mean, they have the pitching matchup advantage in game 1 and game 2. Nola was fantastic from September 1st on. He had a FIP under 2. Zach Wheeler, since coming off the IL, just 1 earned run in the 15 innings he's thrown. That offense still looks like one of the best offenses in baseball on paper, even if it has been a little underwhelming. Maybe Harper hasn't been hitting since he came off the IL. I understand all that. But even on the Cardinals side of things, like their offense, it's deep. Don't get me wrong. They've got a lot of major league caliber players, even at the top end of their AAA system, and it kind of just keeps refilling itself. But Paul Goldschmidt slumped pretty severely down the stretch. Nolan Arenado wasn't amazing in September. The brief week of October we got to see him. Like, if those 2 guys aren't carrying this offense, it's kind of a mediocre offense. So I think I have to go with the Phillies, even though that might be the chalk play.
Eric, you like a dog for an upset here, or are you sticking with a favorite?
I think really I'd like all the underdogs. I mean, give me the plus money on a 3-game series. Anything can happen in 3 games in baseball. A little nervous to bet against Scherzer and DeGrom, so I'm not sure I'd take that one. I'd take, I think, the other 3. But if I'm taking the Phillies, there's no way I'm taking them just straight up to win the series, because I think if this goes 3 games, they will lose. I think the Phillies in game 3, probably throwing Ranger Suarez, who's good but not particularly good by playoff standards. He's also a lefty against a team that has crushed lefties more than any other team this season. Again, with righties, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado leading that Cardinals offense. If St. Louis gets this to 3 games, they will win, which means if I'm betting the Phillies, I'm taking the Phillies to go 2-0, which is at plus 290, far better payout than just the plus 115 to win the series. I think, honestly, those numbers should be almost the same, because I think the Phillies should be clear favorites in games 1 and 2 and even bigger underdogs in game 3.
All right, dudes. That was a good little chat. Looking forward to the postseason being here and hanging out with you two, or you three, throughout the playoffs. Let's poke back over to Thursday Night Football after this break with Jeff and Steve. We got a fantasy look, DFS look, who to stuff inside those showdown lineups tonight for Colts and Denver right after this. Let Russ cook, LOL. More like let Russ snack. His stats with Denver through 4 games, okay, these are not the worst. These are not the worst, and Jeff Ulrich has kind of convinced me, like throughout this week. Jeff's here, Steve Buchanan is here. We're going to get a little DFS look at tonight's game between the Colts and Denver. So, yes, Jeff, you know, he is coming off his best game of the season.
Yeah, yes, he is. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. Had like 124 passer rating,
yep.
Completed, well over 75% of his passes. Yeah, it's a nice some nice patches, deep passes downfield to Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton working. So I don't really know how you can put the blame on Russ here for last week. I mean, certainly he didn't have a great game against the 49ers, but
it's okay.
The Broncos have injuries now. They've got Melvin Gordon fumbling the ball, giving up touchdowns to the other team, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. Russ is looked pretty good to me last week. He didn't have the ball in the entire second half. So.
Yeah, and Jeff Ulrich, speaking of injuries, yes, so there's no Williams. There's going to be no Taylor tonight for the Colts. So who are you deciding to stuff inside your captain spot? So 1.5 times the salary here, but you get 1.5 times the points in return.
I think this is a great spot for Jerry Jeudy to break out. I think that the whole Broncos passing offense has a good chance to break out, and I think you will see another good game from Russ because, again, he did not lose the game for them last week. If anything, he's the only thing that kept them in it. But Colts are terrible against the slot receiver. Chris Moore went 3 for 3 week 1. Christian Kirk 6 for 6 with 2 touchdowns week 2. Jeudy maybe isn't primarily a slot receiver, but he certainly plays a portion of his snaps there, and I think you could see him utilized against the Colts even more from there. He's got 2 touchdowns on the season. The targets have been towards Sutton, and that's fine. And I expect Courtland Sutton to continue to be like the alpha, the big dog in this offense. But I think in this matchup, you'll very much see like a DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett kind of yin and yang between these two as the year goes. And I think this is a matchup where you will see Jeudy potentially pop up. For DFS, he's going to cost you, or he's going to save you a lot of cash down there. He's only the 4th most expensive player. I don't think anyone's really going to be looking to him for captain, but he's absolutely got 100 and a touchdown upside. And if the Broncos do get ahead, the Colts aren't going to do anything on offense anyways because Matt Ryan's still a quarterback. So I like Jerry Jeudy as captain tonight. I think that's a very viable play.
All right, Bukes, you mentioned to me, I believe it was yesterday or a couple of days ago, that you're just staying away from the running game as a whole here. So my guess is you're going quarterback or wide receiver in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, kind of going off what Jeff was saying, I think I'm just going to go with Courtland Sutton here at 14,100. We're only talking about a $2,400 difference between him and Jerry Jeudy, but Courtland Sutton has been the one who's been dominating everything here. 28% target share on the team, just under 40% of the total air yards on the team as well. So when he needs to go downfield, yes, Jerry Jeudy can be that guy, but it's really been going to Courtland Sutton. He's seen at least 7 targets in every single game. We want to talk about some of these bad games that Russell Wilson has had. he's still targeting Courtland Sutton no matter what type of game that he has. So now you take away basically the running game here because this is just such a mess on both teams. Like, do I want to take the fumbling Melvin Gordon, or do I want to take one of the backups that's like, just being elevated from the practice squad? What's this? The Philip Lindsay resurgence? Is this what we're talking about here in week 5? Staying away from all of that here. Just give me a surefire bet or play here with Courtland Sutton.
Yeah, and those target share numbers and air yard numbers that you just mentioned that absolutely run circles around the next closest dude, who is Jerry Jeudy. So it's a natural stack then to throw Russell Wilson in there and hope for a repeat performance from last week, Steve?
Yeah, you could do that there, but to be totally honest, I'm actually looking to take some of the Colts receivers here.
Okay.
I think Alec Pierce is someone that you really want to be looking towards in this game too as well, because again, the run game on both sides is just such a mess here that I can't really think that really anybody on the run game is really going to get much here. But Pierce has been someone that's really quietly been seeing a lot more action as of late. He has 11 targets on his last 37 routes through weeks 3 through 4. And if you're looking to take someone from the Colts receiving game, Michael Pittman is like, because Taylor's out, he's the most expensive guy on this slate, like more than the quarterbacks. Like his price is just so egregious that yes, he's going to get plenty of attention here, but what are the chances that he ends up busting at this price at $10,600? Feels pretty high because Denver's secondary has been near elite level so far this season. So if I'm not going to be taking the number one guy, I want to be going down the board here. So I think if we're thinking maybe a little bit of a back and forth through the air, maybe he's not the flashiest guy, but I think Pierce is someone you really want to take a look at. And I'm certainly not talking about Pierce Dietrich.
No one would be when we're talking something positive. Jeff, we talked about this last night on the slate. So like stacking with Sutton, natural thought is to go with Russell Wilson. But again, Steve made a good point. Broncos zeroing in on Michael Pittman could open up Alex Pierce a little bit here, who's come alive the last couple weeks.
Yeah, the problem with the Colts passing game is that it's just like where outside of Pittman, where is the ball going? I think all these guys are playable. Absolutely. Pierce could get there. And the nice thing about Pierce, he only needs a couple plays, right? I mean, like he is the big play receiver. He's the one who's been posting the bigger plays down the field. And I do like him. I think that for DFS, I think Kylan Grayson is also very playable though, because he's only 3,200. And when you look at a player's usage, like Grayson pops off. He's not playing as many snaps as Paris Campbell. Not Paris Hilton, Paris Campbell. But his target share is basically the same as Campbell's. So Kylan Grayson at 3,200, he's converted his last 8 targets into catches. That's just good. That's good efficiency. Things take notice. Like coaches take notice of things like this. You also see Campbell's snap rate went down last week, which again, this is partly because he's getting outplayed by Grayson. So Grayson at 3,200 is the other Colts cheap receiver I'd go down to as well. Yeah, Matt Ryan and Michael Pittman. I mean, look, you're obviously going to play Wilson if you're captaining like Sutton or Jeudy, but it really, like Pittman and Ryan are they're boom or bust targets here. I would probably just roster Pittman in terms of trying to get some exposure. He's expensive, but I do think he'll be able to overcome the matchup. But if one or both of those guys ended up busting here, I wouldn't be shocked as well.
All right, guys, now it's already an ugly game. We've established that. But we still need some value in this thing. With both running backs out, who are some options for the Pierce Dietrich honorary fifth string value play, Jeff?
So the popular answer is going to be Jelani Woods. And look, like Woods is, we talked about him yesterday, Emerson. He's a freak athlete. But I think the slick play is actually to go to Eric Saubert at 1,200. Albert O is he's on the way out. I mean, he played 1 snap last week. Maybe they get him back on the field and try to build some confidence, but Saubert's the guy who's playing a near every down role. We've seen him pop up a bit. He's not getting a heavy amount of targeting, but the Colts have allowed 4 touchdowns to the tight end position already. I mentioned the slot. They're just not good at covering like in the middle of the field. So this is not a good secondary. It's a good setup for Saubert, and I think you'll probably see a Denver tight end get in the end zone. Saubert's the favorite, I think, in my mind. Alberto could pop up in this game. Maybe Eric Tomlinson pops up as well, who's playing like 40% of the snaps now. But I think Saubert at 1,200 makes for a viable DFS play.
All right, Steve, I'm just going to say it. You mentioned Philip Lindsay earlier. He's $400. This is exactly where Pierce Dietrich will go. He's being elevated from the practice squad, facing his former team in Denver tonight. Let's go. Revenge narrative.
There's no revenge here. I mean, if you get cut in the preseason, it's like, there's no revenge here. You never were a part of the team. I'm with Jeff here. I think Schwarber's actually a really nice play here, running around on 83% of his dropbacks. I mean, the target share isn't huge at 8.3%, but for someone that's been always running a route, it feels like, not doing so on the other 27%, he's a really nice play here at 1,200. And then you brought up Philip Lindsay. Do I want to go out and play Philip Lindsay? Not really. But when people see a potential person who's going to be on the field a good chunk and he's at $400, naturally people are going to gravitate towards him, and that's going to allow people to pay up for other positions. So now you have Schwarber, who could have been potentially a big value here at 1,200, but if people are paying down at 400, now it kind of opens up things that maybe his ownership isn't going to be as high as maybe we expect. So I think actually, if anything, Lindsay helps guys like Schwarber being a little bit lower owned because they can go even lower than that. So I think that's the guy here. I think that this is where the Broncos are going to be moving forward potentially here at tight end. Maybe it's not this week, but I feel like we're getting closer and closer to that point. So I think he's a great play here at 1,200.
All right, like we did earlier in the show here, guys, let's just jump to Sunday morning real quick for Giants and Packers for DFS showdown contest there. So no Galladay. There's uncertainty at quarterback for the Giants, although I believe they anticipate Daniel Jones suiting up. So is Barkley the captain here, Steve?
I mean, he's a little expensive here because he hasn't scored more other than week 1 when he had the 36.4 DraftKings fantasy points. That was a huge game against Tennessee, but that's how bad Tennessee is. I wouldn't say this is the best matchup for him against the Packers, who have a pretty strong defense here. So, but then again, when you're looking through here, it's like really who kind of jumps out at you. I might go with Aaron Jones here against the Giants. He probably has the softer matchup of the two running backs. I think that's kind of the safer play here. Had that huge game last week against New England, who was supposed to be a good run defense. 16 carries, over 100 yards in that game. Gets a few targets each game too as well. I think he has at least 4 targets in every game. At least 3 targets in every game. So I think this is a spot to go with Aaron Jones here because the Packers are big favorites in this one too. I think 8.5-point favorites that I last saw. So I think Aaron Jones is the play here at captain.
Jeff, what's the play at captain here for Packers Giants in London?
Yeah, I'd be very wary about captaining anyone with the blue jersey on in this game. And Steve's right. Barkley is too expensive for this matchup. Like, we get it. He's the only offensive player on the Giants, but I mean, this just screams that the Giants are going to go overseas. They're 3-1. They got the easy win against the Bears, and they're like, you know what? Have at it, like AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, and we'll just take this a week off. I mean, Barkley could get there from the simple fact, like, if they're down by 20 points, maybe just starts getting dump-offs or something like that. But it feels like a thin play for him to be the most expensive captain. I like going with Aaron Jones as well. I also think A.J. Dillon is very viable from the simple fact that I think the Green Bay Packers are going to win this game by just a big margin. And when you get in a scenario like that where you have an offense on the other side who legitimately I don't think are going to be able to move the ball, you could just get a scenario where Green Bay is like, okay, just take the week off, Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon, here's 25 carries. And he could just get – I know he's not the most explosive player. He's not Aaron Jones, but he could just end up with all the red zone touches and just a lighter workload for Jones. So I think both Green Bay running backs are the viable captains here. Barkley could get there as well, but he's overpriced. And my God, I have very big concerns about the Giants doing anything in this game on the offensive end.
Yeah, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to have to do much because that secondary for the Giants absolutely stinks. And it sounds like he wants to float around London a little more and take in like all the sights and go be a tourist and just mash Guinness. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, don't forget, there is a showdown contest. There is a showdown contest available on DraftKings. What is that for? So that's for Thursday night. We're talking about Thursday Night Football. $15 is the entry, $1 million to first place. And when we come back, speaking of London, we are going to cross the pond. Oh my God, it's a perfect segue, producer Drew. We're going to cross the pond because we have some EPL best bets to get to with Chinmay and AJ Scholes. Hey, the sweaty boot, the race is on. All right, we got a few more minutes left to go in this show. It's become a Thirsty Thursday tradition unlike any other. So EPL bets with two of my favorites. We got Chinmay Vaidya here. We got AJ Scholes on the horn. AJ, congratulations on your sweaty boot victory, a commanding 3-1 lead in the sweaty boot race. What say you, AJ?
Hey, look, we are just about earning the people money. So while Chinmay's other picks hit, still worth checking those out because he's got some good picks elsewhere. Just when the lights are on, can't handle the pressure.
Yeah. Chinmay, I will say, like, you're damn good at giving out winning bets. It really is, though, when the lights are bright. It's like, turn them off, turn them off.
Yeah, I think I've got a little PSG blood in me when it comes to the sweaty boot picks. You know, I'm like PSG in the Champions League. The moment the bright lights turn on, things just start to go wrong. But I will say, you know, there's a famous saying in soccer: there's no lead more dangerous than a 2-goal lead. So, you know, AJ's 2 picks ahead. Maybe he gets a little bit too much, a little bit overconfident. So
that might
there's
happen.
nothing more dangerous than a 2-pick lead.
I'd like to know how confident you are here, Chinmay, in your Arsenal squad, because Arsenal and Liverpool, the premier matchup of the weekend on Sunday, and your boys finally have a team capable of at least flirting with the title challenge here, dude. So I'm assuming you like that side, but what's a bet in this game that you like, Chinmay?
I really like a few plays on the total, depending on how you view the Liverpool game against Fulham. Basically, that game was a 9-0 beatdown and has skewed Liverpool's goal totals and goal differentials in an extreme way. So if you take out that game, Liverpool basically has an even goal differential throughout the Premier League season. So under 2.5 goals total in this game is sitting at plus money. Over 3.5 goals is also sitting at plus money if you believe that that was a turnaround for Liverpool offensively. And obviously over 2.5 is the favored play. That's minus 160 right now. So if you're looking for a total, if you want to stay away from a game result entirely, you can go over or under depending on how you feel about Liverpool, both sitting at plus money. I would probably go away from over 2.5, not a huge payoff there. But for me, you know me, Emerson, I'm rolling with my boys again. It's Arsenal plus 155 on the money line. That's where I'm going this week again. I really like this team, and I really like the way they've been playing recently.
AJ, what's the move in this one on the DK Sportsbook?
I'm here to tell you that Chinmay is not just being a homer in this one. I think that's actually the good play here. It's been a tough start to the season for Liverpool, especially by their standards. They have yet to secure 3 points on the road this year, 2 draws and a loss to Manchester United. Arsenal does have the midweek Europa League clash today, but I'm guessing we're going to see some backups in that one against Bodo Glimt. So I think you go straight money line, as Chinmay said, on Arsenal in this one at plus 155.
All right, AJ, let's go to Brighton and Tottenham here. A good matchup on Saturday. 2 teams here in the top 4 of points right now on the table. So what's a bet that tickles your fancy here, bro?
Yeah, with it being at home for Brighton, I'm a little hesitant to go with either team on the money line or even to look at the draw no bet. So instead, I'm going to go a simple goal scorer prop in this one. Take Harry Kane to score at plus 140. And look, if you're going that route, I would also look at taking Kane to have 2 or more shots on target at plus 125. He's hit that mark. Most games when he's scored, he's had at least 2 shots on target. So that's where I'm going, goal scorers in this one.
All right, Chinmay, Brighton's impressive start to the season. It continued last weekend when they drew 3-3 at Liverpool.
Yeah, Brighton has been very good to start the season, and they're also scoring goals, which has been a concern for them in seasons past. So I'm actually going to go Brighton draw no bet in this one. It was plus money yesterday when I checked on the book. It's now sitting at minus 105. So Brighton getting a little bit more value there from the odds makers. I am going with the home side, though, draw no bet, minus 105. I still think that's pretty good payoff for a Brighton team that has been pesky to start the season. Tottenham coming off a tough Champions League game. Also a tough loss to Arsenal last week, so I like Tottenham to fade them a little bit here. I'll go with Brighton.
All right, guys. It's the moment of truth because we're running tight on time. Sweaty boot time. Sweaty boot time. Let's go, Chinmay. You want this? It's time to step it up. The lights are bright once again. What's your favorite bet of the weekend? Come on.
I'm looking at the Fulham-West Ham game. Fulham, if you take away, again, as I mentioned, that 9-0 loss to Liverpool, they've actually been tremendous in terms of scoring goals. West Ham on the other side has not been very good, and especially offensively has been really struggling this season. So I'm going to go Fulham double chance with a draw or a Fulham win sitting at plus 105. That's where I'm going for my sweaty boot pick of the week.
Wow, AJ, he sounds really nervous right now. You got that 3-1 lead, kid. What's your favorite bet this weekend, dude?
Well, I might be getting a little overconfident. You're right, because I am going off the board here. I'm going to look at the Nottingham Forest matchup here and take them draw no bet plus 135 here to against Aston Villa. Look, Villa's going to be without two of their wingbacks here, at least. And, you know, they are a Forest team that's potentially on their last legs with manager Stephen Cooper. He needs to get his side a win or the sack is coming. I think they're heavily invested in winning this one. Villa's banged up back line could concede some goals here. I think Nottingham Forest, draw no bet, plus 135 is the play.
Yeah, Forest hoping to end their run of 3 home defeats here, AJ. Dudes, I love y'all. Looking forward to the Twitter updates this weekend. May just have to tweet out the sweaty boot picks, all right? Keep you honest here. Everybody, that is a show. Do not forget to watch us again back here live in studio, 11 a.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a Friday edition of The Sweat. Let's go, baby.